It's the Middle-Aged Bodcast. Getting older, but having some laughs.
Welcome to the Middle-Aged Bodcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shalano.
And T.A., we are back with another Best of the Bodcast.
Yep, this time we are looking back at episodes covering mental health, and we have taken a guest from each of our first 4 seasons who discussed this topic.
That's right, and we're going to be kicking it off with our very first guest that we had on the podcast. So we are going to be hearing from Laura and her episode in season 1.
I think part of my depression is the feeling of loneliness and isolation. So just being around friends, not necessarily physically, having that communication over the phone or just text messages and things like that. Exercise really helps as well. Not just, I do hot yoga, which is really good for mental health and breathing and awareness to your body. But it also helps me to feel stronger and also vanity purposes. Like you do look better when you've been exercising. So yeah, I think a lot of that really helps me outside of therapy.
You mentioned there, obviously, loneliness, and I note that a lot of people talk about that, as an increasing problem and impact on mental health, which is interesting considering, obviously, the world's population is very high now, but the loneliness seems to be getting worse. What thoughts do you have around modern society on loneliness?
I think a lot of it is that you just don't feel part of a community. So I lived in a city in an apartment. Very rarely did I speak to my neighbours. But the times I've spent overseas, you actually feel part of a community and you feel a lot less lonely. Everybody's just so busy with their everyday lives that you can just be very isolated. And sometimes you're that person that just needs to reach out to have some of that contact, particularly if you live alone. And I'm lucky that I do have people that I can reach out to, but other people don't. And I think that's why being lonely or feeling lonely is not the same as being alone. They are two different things. And I think you're very much feelings of loneliness is more about isolation and nobody understanding what you're going through, particularly if you're also going through mental health issues.
Great to hear back the first ever guest that we had on the podcast there, Laura, and a massive thank you to her for sharing such a personal journey with us.
Yeah, such a long time ago. I can't believe how many people we've interviewed, Rich, since then. But I suppose we better move on to season 2.
Yeah, so in season 2, we spoke to Mel from the Men Against Mountains movement. Mel is the lady who advocates for men's mental health.
Yeah, I just think people find it easy to open up to me, which is sort of worrying in one respect because a lot of the men say they find it really difficult to open up to their partners, but they tell me their deepest, darkest secrets that they've held on for probably 20 odd years. So I try to then nurture that into them doing that. So there's a lot of support that goes on that people don't see. I probably get up to about 40, 50 messages every day. So it's a lot. But we've got a WhatsApp group now as well, which one of the guys facilitates that started following my page right from the beginning. And I gave him that role because I think he needed it in his journey to start giving back. I think when you've been through the most awful times, you almost get this clarity. It's time then to be able to give to somebody else. And I think that helps in your journey too. So I gave him that role. And we try to keep it quite small. I don't advertise it very much. There's about 50, 60 men in the group, and some people leave and then we'll add another couple in. So it's not too overwhelming to navigate, because it's just, there's probably 300-400 messages going back and forth every day. So that's good. And I did used to hold support groups, talking groups in Peterborough, where I'm from, up till sort of COVID, and then they sort of stopped. But I'd love to do that again. I'd like to sort of get the groups up and running again because they were really going well. We had like 25, 30 men turn up every week.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah. being a woman as well, I was just like, I don't think people are shocked anymore though, which is great, isn't it? Like, people still call me bro. There's, I still get like called bro sometimes, but I think it's important for the men to know that it's a woman running the page so they know who they're talking to. So they've got that choice if they don't want to. But it's worrying that men don't want to speak to their most loved ones in their life. And I think it's because they just don't want people to see them any differently or fall out of love with them and see them as a weaker link, maybe. It is worrying though. And that's what I really want to start nurturing more. That it's okay, that's completely okay. And if those people can't hold that space for you, then they shouldn't be in your life. We should be giving that to each other, that compassion, understanding.
I suppose you kind of then built almost like this sort of niche that you seem to have connected with people, almost like a form of therapy. I mean, in podcast interviews that I've heard of yours, you said that you're a shy person in a confident person's body, which probably resonates a little bit with us doing this podcast. But what impact has then this work and this movement had on your own personal confidence, your life, your mental health, well-being, etc.?
I mean, I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about pushing myself to my limits, where that's not always the most healthiest thing you should do. Like burnout is horrendous. So I do navigate the page a lot better now than I did 2 years ago. I used to answer messages at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, which I don't do anymore because I have to put that line there, which I think is really important for your own self. But I've just learned so much more about not just men, but just people and myself. And I got so much inner peace from doing this, like from giving back and just so I'm not professional. I do this in my spare time. I don't get paid for it, even though that's something that I would love to do in the future, go into a mental health role. I've just gone for a job with Mind Charity, so fingers crossed. Because that would just be, I know that I'm good at what I do, but I am very shy. I do get really uncomfortable, and especially on the lives, honestly, my anxiety is awful, and I don't know whether that comes across on the lives or not. But I allow myself, as I said before, to be vulnerable, and I think that's really important. I probably got this look where, like, people come into the gym where I look, and they look at me like because of my tattoos and stuff, and it's just that people's perception of you initially, but I'm not like the way I look, I suppose. I'm the softest person, and yeah, people just have those perceptions of you, I suppose. And I do a lot of mental health support via the gym where I work as well. It's a safe space especially for the men that come in. They'll come and have a coffee and not necessarily train sometimes. They just want to just express how they feel. So that's another thing that I do probably that it's just, adds on. But I've learned so much about myself I think I'm just so much in tune with myself now. I've stripped my life right back to the minimum, quite a simple life. I love it. I'm sort of going into my hibernation mode now. I feel it's almost like be like winter, if that makes sense. It's like listen to the animals, see what they're doing, like see the trees shedding their leaves. And I'm going with that. I find that work for me now. So it's taking a step back. But definitely learned more about men over the last 4 years than I ever have in my whole life, which is good. But more about myself too. I think you do when you give back.
Well, massive thanks to Mel there. Certainly one of my favourite guest episodes, Rich.
Yeah, it was great speaking to Mel as part of season 2 and learned a lot from her. And that segues nicely into season 3, where we spoke to independent author and Andy's Man Club facilitator, Alan Rose. So here's a clip from that episode.
The group therapy thing has sort of worked for me. I think I initially joined just because I've moved to sort of like a new place and things like that, and I didn't necessarily have sort of like the widest sort of like social network, and so I think it's a good place to go because you just want to form a connection with people generally. So it comes from basically a place where for most of my life, I've sort of been bottling things up like emotions and thoughts, and I just necessarily haven't had the opportunity or even sort of like the means or the language to actually be able to, talk about. Andy's Man Club works really well because it gives you a series of questions that help you just categorize what sort of things you can talk about and in what sort of level. So like the first question is always, how's your week been? And you can just quickly sort of categorize on a week by week basis. How am I feeling? Is it better from the last one, or have I had like an up and down this week, or has it been sort of generally good? And I think that it's good because it gives you those sorts of routines to think in and process all of the stuff that's going on. Because when you're in a really deep position, it's really difficult to pick apart exactly when, thoughts started happening, or how much something from ages ago has affected you and whether it's coming back up and things like that. So I found it really useful for that because, like the initial sort of reasons I went there was because I definitely had a lot that I needed to talk about from my past. And was able through like a series of weeks to start really processing and getting to grips with what it was that I was actually thinking and feeling and, getting on top of all of the things that I've personally experienced in life. So yeah, it's really useful for that.
Great to hear that back and hear Alan's experiences. I'm an attendee of Andy's Man Club myself, and they do some brilliant work for men's mental health. So yeah, really good to hear about the stuff that they're doing.
That's, excellent there, Rich. And takes us on to season 4, where we were joined by Caralyn Dreyer. And I think we're sort of going to end this on a sort of moment of reflection as such, where we asked Caralyn what she would tell her younger self over a coffee.
I would tell her that you can do it, which sounds like so basic, but like I've said, struggled with self-esteem since childhood. I lived in the shadow of my siblings. They're all amazing people. This is not dissing them, but they were in these honor choirs. They were in the National Honor Society on the honor roll. They were taking college classes in high school, like doing all these things. All the teachers knew them. So I was known as like their sibling. And so that kind of made me think I was like less than because I wasn't doing those same things. And I had people around me all the time. My grandfather repeatedly would tell me, you can do it. I believe in you. You can achieve these things. But I didn't believe it. I felt like, well, they're just telling me that because they have to. I'm their family. They have to tell me that stuff. So I would tell her, you really can do it. You can do it, because I've gone on to achieve so many things that I never thought that I would have, but it's because I told myself, you can do this. It would just be that simple, as believe what these people are telling you. Like, you really have it in you to achieve whatever you want. Well, I think I would just like to leave with reminding everybody that no matter where you come from or where you're at in life, especially as it concerns your mental health, you're definitely not alone. There's so many of us out here who understand the struggles, the challenges, the messy parts. So please just know, like, in those moments where you feel like nobody understands you or nobody gets you, that's most definitely the biggest lie in the world. And also just that everybody remembers that they're important and they matter.
Well, that brings a close to our Best of the Bodcast mental health episode. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who has been on the podcast and discussed their mental health journeys with us. Really do appreciate your time and telling your story to us. And TA, we will be back in a couple of weeks with season 6. Really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, you will be getting a trailer from us, which will not actually introduce the season this time, but actually introduce our 2026 plan. So look out for that. And yeah, then join us for season 6 and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Two best mates, yeah, they take you to stand. Rachel, Rich, and TA got your health in the hands. Williams, laughs, and tales they tell. For beats and nights, the workouts, they're keeping it real. Oh!